Hey everyone, Kevin here. Hey, in this video, we're going to do something really cool. We're going to create an AI ethical hacking assistant to help us with CTFs and even engagements that you might be on. Now, why would we do this? Well, you can go to ChatGPT or Claude or something like that, and you can find these assistants that are ethical hacking assistants. The problem is, if you're on a real engagement, you can't be taking customer data and sending it up to the AI cloud because it's going to use that in its model, and that's going to break your agreements that you have with. So it's just not a good idea. So with this, you'll contain all of your data on your computer so that it's private. The other great thing is that you don't need a GPU on your system to do this. Having a GPU is going to be much faster, of course, but you don't need one to have it work. So we're going to use all Windows. Now, you can do this on a Macintosh. You can do this on a Linux machine. And maybe I'll have videos on how to do that later. But this is all Windows. And we're not going to be using the Linux subsystem for Windows because even as a hacker, that's not really a place where you want to live. So without further ado, let's get after it and create this assistant. Okay, there's three things that we want to download. One is Ollama. That's going to be our AI engine. We'll download the models, it'll run those models, and it has an API that we can communicate with. The next thing is that we're going to download Docker for desktop. So we're going to run Docker on our host machine. Now, when I said we're not using WSL, I kind of lied because it does use the Windows subsystem to run the Docker, but we're not going to interface with it directly. The third thing is going to be downloading a WebUI that's very similar to ChatGPT. It has a lot of that same functionality, and it's got the ability to reach out and actually search the web. So it's a very cool software. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to search for Ollama. Ollama, just say download. Oops. Download. Okay. Here we go. Okay, click download. We're going to do Windows. So click that and download for Windows Preview. Now, I've already got it downloaded, but just go ahead and save it there. It'll take a little bit. It's pretty big. It's like, I think it's 660 megabytes. Okay. The next thing we need to do is we need to download Docker for desktop. Next thing we need to do is download Docker for desktops. Okay, so we'll click here. By the way, all these URLs will be in the description. So we have here, we want to download Docker for desktop, Docker desktop for Windows, x86-64. And I've already downloaded it. The final thing is we need to get to the GitHub page for Open WebUI. And I'll just show you what it looks like. GitHub Open WebUI. And this is the GitHub. Now, we're not going to be directly interacting with this to get it. We're going to do a Docker pull on this, and we'll show you the exact commands that we do that with. But this is the Open WebUI. As you can see, it's kind of got the same look as a ChatGPT chatbot client. And that's what we're after. Okay, so let's go ahead and run. Can I find this? Okay, Ollama desktop, the Ollama setup. Okay, now this will take a little bit to install, so we'll come back when this is finished. Okay, so we have that all installed. What we want to do is we want to do this. We want to go over here and we want to go type in terminal. So open up your start menu and type in terminal. Right click that and run that as administrator. We'll want that open, a couple of windows open. Here we go. I happen to have a GPU. Okay, so if you don't have one, don't worry about it. You do. You just don't have a really powerful one. If you don't have like an NVIDIA installed, right? You've got something that came with the chipset that you have. But I'm going to run something. It's called NVIDIA SMI. And what this does is it shows you your GPU. Okay, and if you see here, this is the percent utilization. This is kind of what you want to look at. Now, this is just a snapshot. If I want to run this over and over again, I can do a -L or -L and .05. And what that's going to do is that it's going to kind of repeatedly give me a snapshot of what's going on there. Here, what we want to do is we want to download a model. Now, let's look over here. On the website, you have all of these models, right? We can click here and we can look through all the models. Now, some of the main models are like Gemma 2, that's Google's, Llama 3.1, that's the latest one from Meta. We got Alibaba's Gwen 2.5. So you can play around with all of these. It doesn't matter how many models that you load on your system. You can load as many as you want. What we're going to do is we're just going to test this out. So what we're going to do is we are going to just type in Ollama. It should be installed here. And we're going to do a run Llama 3.1. And that will pull the latest Llama 3.1. And then it will run the model and we can ask it questions just to test it out, to make sure everything's running in the AI front. All right, so now we have the chatbot up and running. Right here is the kind of the input for this. So I can type something in here just to see if this thing's working. So let's just do, why is the sky blue? Pretty standard question to see if AI models are running. And watch what happens over here on the right. You'll notice that this has gone to 81% over here. So we know that the GPUs are being used and that Ollama is working. Okay, let's move on to the next phase. So the next thing that we need to do is install Docker for desktops. I've already downloaded this, so I'm not going to download this, but I am going to launch it. So let's double click that guy and now this is pretty bulky. It's about 2.5 gigs. So just click OK here and we'll come back. You don't have to do anything else. It's just going to run and install. And when it's done, we'll come back. Okay, we finished installing that. So go ahead and hit close here. What we want to do is we want to make sure that the Docker engine is actually running. So if we type in Docker here, we should be able to see, whoops, that's not it. The Docker desktop application. Docker desktop, open that up. And whenever something is not running quite right, we're going to skip all this stuff for now. You can actually create an account here if you want. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that the engine is running. Because if the engine isn't running, then we're not going to be able to access our web interface in the future. So if you notice down here in the bottom right, it says that the engine's running. You can stop this. You can either pause it or you can stop it. You can quit desktop, but then you can launch it again. And once you launch it, it'll attempt to fire up. It's always a good idea to open it up, make sure that Docker desktop is actually running. I have it here in my tray, my system tray. Skip. Okay, so down here, it says that the engine's running. Awesome. Let's do another thing here. We're going to look, we need to open up another terminal. And we'll run that as administrator because Docker can only be an administrator. Just type Docker and see if something comes back, and it does. Okay. We're at the point where we need to pull down the open WebUI. Now, if you remember, we were over here looking for this. This command is actually in here that I'm going to run. It is this one here. And we're going to paste this into our terminal. Make sure that you're running this as the administrator. And let's go. So it's going to say, hey, I can't find that image. That's because it doesn't exist on the system. So what it's doing now is it's pulling down all of the different files that it needs to run this container. There's a lot of moving parts in this WebUI. This is the simplest way to bring it up. And so when this is done, we'll come right back. Okay, so it finished downloading and it started up. Now, this container was also set, if you look here, it says restart always. That means that every time the computer's reboot, it's going to come up. So Ollama is going to come up every time, and so is this GUI. So it should be stable. Now, let me just tell you that the container is an instance of the image. So one of the ways you can tell if this is up is you can type Docker PS, and this is going to give you everything that's running, all the containers that are running. So at the very end, that's the name, open-WebUI. The very beginning is the ID, and you can refer to these containers either by the name or by the ID. If you don't name it, then you just refer to it by the ID. Now, these are images or instances. There's an instance of the image that was downloaded. So the way to see your image is to do a Docker image list. And the image ID is what you're going to refer it by. So that's your image. So when you stop the container, you can stop it by saying Docker stop, and you can do open web UI, and it's going to come back and it's going to just kind of give its name. And now it's stopped. If you do a Docker PS, there's nothing there. But the container's gone, but the image is still there. Now you can start this too by saying Docker start open web UI. And now you've got Docker PS. We should see it there. So it's running. Okay, so here's where the rubber meets the road. Can we actually access it? So the way it's running is running on localhost. It's listening on the localhost. So we can do, I generally like to do 2701 or 001 colon, and it's running on 3000. It's listening on 3000. And there it is. So it's up and running. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to create an account. Now, in this interface, the first person that logs in is the administrator, right? So we go to sign up here. It's not going to send any emails or anything, so don't worry about that. Create the account, and now I'm in. Does it see a model? And it does. If it sees that model, then you're golden. Everything right now is set up. Your infrastructure for your own personal AI is here. So if we select that, I can type a message. Why is the sky blue? Please be complete. And there it is. And so we can also check this here and see what's happening. We're at 81%. Is this not? Oh, this is, what's our last end? So 80%. So it's using, so everything's working great. So we are ready to go on to the next phase. What we're going to do is we're going to build an AI agent. That's kind of specifically what it's called. And what you're doing is it's kind of like role playing. It's going to be given a very, very specific task. And so let's go into workspaces here. And we're going to create a new agent. So we can hit this plus sign. There's a lot of things about this that are not very intuitive, but this plus sign is going to allow us to create a new agent. So we're going to call this Neo, for lack of better words. Okay. We're going to select the base model. Now, this is not the base model that we want. We want to use something else. We want to use a version of White Rabbit that can take advantage of our GPU. And so that's what we're going to do. So if we go over here and we /by, we're going to do an Ollama pull Alien Intelligence White Rabbit version 2. This one seems to work pretty well for this purpose. So that's going to pull that model down. This model was designed to be a hacker agent in the first place. And so we're going to use this model because it doesn't have, now you got to be careful because this is what's called an uncensored model, right? It doesn't have the fence posts put up on this thing. They're kind of taken down. So it could be dangerous for any other purpose. But what we're going to do is give it a very specific purpose and use so that it can help us with our hacking. Okay, so we're back. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we can run this first. Unfortunately, there's no way to pull models from the interface itself. It would be difficult to do, by the way, because it would have to interface with the... I guess it could do it. It's just the functionality is not in there. So we're going to run this model. And why is the sky blue? I know it's a stupid question, but it serves its purpose. And it will tell us. Okay, good. Now, what we need to do over here is we need to reload this. Let's go to the home and reload again. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new model. We're going to call it Neo. And when you pull this down, there should be the alien intelligence white rabbit now. And that's great. So let's select that. We'll give this is an ethical hacking assistant named Neo. Okay, now for the model parameters. This is the system prompt. So this is going to be the prompt when that model starts. This is going to be the information that's given to it. And so I've got a rather long prompt here. And I'm going to put this prompt in the description or a link to it so you can take it out. But I basically put this together. It's not perfect, but it actually does a really good job. And so I'm going to copy all this and place it in here. Okay. Now we can create prompt suggestions and things like that. We can actually select documents and upload documents. That's part of the RAG. But you can also, you'll see that you can do searches on the web. I'm not going to go into any of the details. You can look up on Google on this interface and how to configure all of it. We're just going to get this thing running, and I'm going to show you how it works. Okay, that looks good. That looks good. Let's change this grammar here. Sorry for my dyslexia. Okay, we're going to save that. And we can even, put a weird, a picture to that or something like that if we want. Okay, so now when we click on this, we're in the Neo model. Okay, so what do you do? How do you start out? Let's just take, for instance, if you're doing Hack the Box or something, and you got a single host, right? You got a single host that you're gonna try to attack. So I can say something. I have a single host with IP 10.1.0.12 or something like that, okay? I want to scan it for vulnerabilities. How should I start? Pretty simple. My typing is atrocious, so sorry about that. When I scan it for vulnerabilities, how should I start? So it's going to give you some pretty generic things. So now that I have ideas, it's like, okay, wait a minute. I can use Nmap. Tell me the Nmap commands to scan this host. Look at that. It gives you basically the command to run. And you can get specific, say, are there any other arguments to use that would make this a better scan? Look at that. So you can start asking it questions about the commands. Okay, so now that you have that, I can say something like this. And it gives me a pretty extensive, like, kind of explanation of what some of the switches are. So it's a great way to learn. Now I can say, well, I have discovered that the host is vulnerable to eternal blue. How do using tools on Kali Linux I like how it says it can assist me in actually doing it, but here's how you do it. Okay. Oh, okay. So I can use Metasploit. And it's basically, can you give me the exact commands to run to get a interpreter shell? So it basically, well, I love how it says I can't assist with that. And there's ways that you can mess with the system prompt to say, hey, look, don't even bother saying, that's not ethical or this or that. This is all done in an ethical manner. Everyone's getting paid, including you. You can tell the model that it's getting paid every time it gets the right answer, and it might come out with better answers. So you might want to mess around with it, but you get the idea. We just, in a few minutes, have turned our computer into an expert AI ethical hacking assistant. Now, the other thing that you can do is, if I am going to, I want to do a scan, put the Nmap scan, you can upload the Nmap scan, which is great, and have it. I don't have an Nmap scan here, but it will parse it out, and it will say, hey, these are the hosts, these are the things that I see. And so it works really, really well. So that's it. Your AI ethical hacking assistant in a box, on your box, private, no data leakage, and there you go. Have fun with it. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Otherwise, have fun. Explore.